can you see me? This is episode 4 of AnglingBuzz ICE. And we're fishing in the Yeti.
Hold on, I just gotta crank it up, Pike. Forward like an inch.
Walleye, yes. Yeah. Look at that big old sauger right there. Perfect for the pan. Now here in the upper Midwest, a few of our favorite species to target are sauger like that one, walleye, panfish, but in this episode, we're gonna be talking about a bunch of different bites going on right now, all across the ice belt. A lot of excellent midwinter ice fishing opportunities. Stay tuned. Now when the bite is tough in midwinter and you're chasing walleyes, as you can see right here, the dead stick's popping. Dead sticks can be a great tool in these situations. And there we go. Now I'm gonna hand it off to my good buddy, Tony Mariotti, and he's gonna share a few dead sticking tips.
We're out here today doing a little walleye fishing, and I want to share a couple of the things that have been really working well for me this year. We started off getting out here and we're catching a lot of walleyes, a lot of small fish, and by small I'm talking 8, 10, 11 inch fish, and got to the point where we're trying to get some bigger fish on. So what we've done is we've upsized our baits. I moved to a bigger search type lure in trying to avoid some of those smaller fish. The other thing I did is I have a new favorite rod out this year, and it's called the Dead Meat Stick, and I love to use this rod as my dead stick when I'm walleye fishing, because what I can do is I can put a great big minnow on there, and I set it next to me within arm's reach. It's got a super fast sanded fiberglass tip, and what I can do is I can keep it down there. I have it set about 8 inches off the bottom, and if a fish comes, that super sensitive tip starts to load up. I can see it start to go down. I can grab my rod, tighten up my drag, and when I go to set the hook, I can be assured that this backbone with the rod is going to be strong enough to really let me bury that hook in that fish so I can get a good hook set and put more fish on the ice.
Now another great set line delivery system is the tip up. And next up, I'm gonna throw it to my buddy Brad Hawthorne, and he's gonna share a few tips on catching fish on tip ups.
This is what I call a small spread. We're gonna throw tip ups out and actually see what is here, how many fish are gonna come up through the holes, and if in an hour we don't produce, we're out of here, man. Like, we're packing up and we're gone. When we're staggering tip ups, when you put out your spread, that one's close to the bottom. Key set his. Key, where you got your set off the bottom?
It's about a foot.
About a foot. So Key's about a foot. This one's about a 2. That one's right on the bottom. And then we've got sprinkled other tip-ups all the way over that are all buried. So if we start seeing one tip-up that's constantly producing 2, 3, 4, 5 fish, we will kind of adjust ours lower and know that that's kind of the commitment line for the fish to bite. So whenever you're on fish, what you're gonna do is by putting set lines out, you're gonna retain the fish in the area. You're gonna make them think that there's bait here. And when more fish stop, especially in a situation like a break line, when fish stop and gather, more fish will stop and gather as well. They just won't keep going down the break. You're giving them a reason to stop and hang out and potentially school up. So when you find 5, 6, 8 fish on a break, camp on it, drill it out, expand the area, put down set lines, and that's basically what we're doing.
Now, midwinter fishing is characterized by really cold temperatures, and most folks think that fishing braided line is only good inside or when it's really warm, but Jason Mitchell has a different opinion. Here's his take.
You know, one thing I hear a lot is, you know, what type of line to use outside. I tell you what, 15, 20 years ago when braid first came out, some of the first spider wire, some of the first braid, you know, people tried to use it for ice fishing and it absorbed so much water at the time that I remember thinking it'd be great on a tip-up. I put it on a tip-up, I took the tip-up out of the water, it was a block of ice. It just froze solid. But since then, you know, braids have changed a lot. And so there's probably the biggest misconception I see with ice anglers is that they think they have to use monofilament when they're fishing outside. And I tell you what, if you're out in this toughest of elements and you're using 6-pound mono, you are showing up to a gunfight with a knife. Okay, just trust me, the line's gonna get blown to the side of the hole, it's gonna freeze there, it's gonna stick there, you can't snap it off. The line's gonna freeze up. When you slide the ice down your line, you just get a big ball of ice further down your line, you're jigging a golf ball below the ice. Just use braided line, you can shred the ice off your line, you can be a lot rougher with it, and you have that sensitivity when you're using mittens. And so it's something that I think at some point somebody said that braids sucked for fishing outside in the cold, and since then everybody's believed it, but it's not true.
Now, midwinter like this, a lot of guys like to fish out of hub houses, flip overs, but it's tough to beat shacking up in the Yeti like this, fishing with buddies. Looks like Jared's working something on the rattle reel right now.
Look at this, bobber's down. That's a good sight right there. Let's see what we got.
You got one on there?
All right.
Oh, that's actually not terrible.
Sweet. This is the deal, man. Having fun in the fish house. Conditions are so cold outside. It's windy, it's nasty. But hey, if we want to go outside and fish, we can bounce around, drill holes, and we can sit in here, eat good food, catch lots of these. I'm loving it.
Yeah, now let's take a quick look at what we've been doing this weekend. So right now we are on the shores of Lake of the Woods. Our buddies here are gonna help us drag this big machine out on the like 21-foot Yeti fish house. Should be interesting.
It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna spend a couple nights out on the ice, hopefully catch a lot of walleye, sauger, and we're kind of excited that the nighttime might bring some burbot. Little winter camping, fishing excursion in the Yeti. It's gonna be sweet.
Pumped.
I am too. All right, let's get the rest of the stuff packed and go.
I just stayed up jigging while the boys went to bed. Oh yes, and I'm on the pout board. Yes. Yeah, look at that.
Huh?
Walleye for breakfast.
Just another nice fish.
Probably caught 20, 30 fish just out of one hole today. It's just.
Oh, that's
Yeah!
That's right. Burbot, boys. All right, so that's not exactly a keeper, but right now we do have a bucket of keepers. Everybody's got their own take on how to clean a fish, and Mark Arneson has got to be one of the fastest fish cleaners that I've ever seen. Here's how he does it.
As everybody knows, there's 101 different ways to flay a walleye, but up here at Arneson's Rocky Point and Lake of the Woods, this is the most efficient and easiest way we've seen. First cut, go right under here, split, then split down the belly, roll, then just roll your knife and go down the backbone. Leave it attached to the tail. Same thing on the other side, just roll. When you come to here, instead of trying to cut through the backbone, what you do is just lay your knife and just turn and it breaks it off. And then just, when you do the bones, all the bones line up like this. So when you lay it, they go like this. Put your knife down, you gotta remember, head to tail. Keep the tip of your knife on the board, roll over, rib bones come out. Same thing, head to tail. Just kind of saw through like that. Leave your patch of skin. Leave your patch of skin. If you got any little bit of trimming to do that now. You end up with two beautiful fillets and no wasted meat.
Now, in our neck of the woods, walleye fishing is king, but there's actually a lot of really good opportunities to chase trout in stock trout lakes all across the Midwest, whether you want to chase browns, rainbows, brookies, etc. So now we're going to join my dad as he shows you how to take advantage of some of these stocked fisheries.
Now we're just starting to get set up for trout here. You know, one thing that trout actually, the stocked trout, they actually can wander this entire lake. But you'll notice I have a real sharp drop off here, and it transitions onto a shallow flat in here. So I figure this is a key area. The fish are gonna sort of corral the fish into a little bit of a smaller area. A lot of times when these fish are active, they'll be feeding right below the surface, but the water is so clear, we'll be able to see the bottom.
The thing with these, almost all these fish, what's really key is ultra finesse. Ultra finesse, and what I mean by that is really light line. A lot of times the number of bites with 2 or 4 pound test is double or triple that of 6 or 8, and I'm serious about that, even for really big ones. Oop, oh, there's one right there. He's back on it again. Got him. And one thing about trout, generally, you set up in a spot like that, because they're so spooky, a lot of times what you do is you set up in an area and just fish, and eventually the fish will come through that area. Come here, buddy. Not a biggie. That fish just came on a little tungsten probe. Then I have just a little red-colored spike for taste on it. Well, they're eating a lot of different types of forage. They're eating bugs, insects, freshwater shrimp, you know, a lot of small stuff, even zooplankton. So a lot of times, even for big trout, you can use really small lures. Ooh, that's a little bit better one there. Whoa. These guys, they're pretty wild. just snaking around. Come here, buddy. Come here. No biggies yet. There are some big ones in here. The interesting thing is, you know, when they stock them, this is like the classic stocker right here, about this size. But they actually, in some of these lakes, they intermittently put in pretty substantial fish, like almost adults. And they'll, you know, vary in size. But when they stock them, some of them, you know, maybe 3 to 4 pounds, actually. It's just a little pipsqueak. We'll let her go back down to the depths.
Now let's check out my favorite stocked fishery, brown trout in Lake Michigan. So where are we at, Doug?
We're in the famous Milwaukee Harbor, setting up some autos, some jawjackers, some homemade goodies. As far as baits today, we're running spawn sacks and then shiners as well. You can use just about anything that has a decent scent to it. Shrimp can also work as well, like literally shrimp you buy from the store. As far as depth though, a lot of these fish are towards the bottom, but you can also run your baits throughout the water column. Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. But since we've got the ability to run 3 lines per person here, we can really kind of cover the whole water column and see what's working. the water's incredibly clear, so everything is ultra finesse, really light line, small presentations.
Jason's running.
Oh, on.
Yes!
Just about anything that swims, they'll eat if it's presented to them right.
Do you have a favorite presentation?
For me, it's hard to beat the minnow. It's a pretty good fail-safe. It's always got action. There's so many variables to the spawn method that it's really hard to beat actual live bait. What'd this one bite?
Look how chunky he is.
Shiner. Shiner?
What's the size structure of fish from the Great Lakes with brown trout?
So the Great Lakes offer some of the biggest browns in the world, in Milwaukee specifically. 3-pounders are on your really small side versus a 3-pounder in a stream is an incredible fish, right?
Yeah, right.
So these fish can range anywhere from that 3 pounds all the way up to the mid 20-pound range. Look at this belly, guys.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Holy cow.
So what we're doing now is we're going around checking our holes, and we're just putting on fresh spawn bags just to keep good scent down there.
Yeah.
They use scent to their advantage so much, right?
How often would you say changing would be a good idea?
Probably every hour, 2 hours, yeah. But just a fresh bag, fresh scent. You can actually see like the scent disperse as it hits the water.
The spawn sinks too, which is nice. We don't have to use split shots. One thing you'll notice too that Doug did is he didn't unhook the rod, reel it up, change it. What he did was just pull up the line so he knew how much line was out. You don't have to bring a flasher with you and figure out how deep it is, and it's a little quicker.
Yeah, because these take a little finicky to set up sometimes, so if you can do it without.
Yeah, the less stuff you have to drag around with you, the better.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, next hole.
Drag just screaming.
Holy cow!
I told you this one was gonna go.
This is it, Doug.
This is the one I told you was gonna go. Oh, big! It's a big fish.
It's a big one? Are you serious?
Yep, it's a big fish. It's a big fish.
Ooh, ooh, yep.
Really big fish.
Whew. Need to rest my nerves here. This was a spawn sack.
Yeah, I saw the sack. She got it right in the corner and all.
That's good. I'm glad it's right in the corner, right where it could pop off. I don't know if I want to kneel or stand up.
No, stand. So once that swivel gets there, just lift that rod up.
Okay. Should be close. Ooh, ooh.
See it? Oh,
Grab
it's like it got a deform. Oh yeah, it's. Oh look.
Oh, that is a hog.
It's big.
That is a giant fish. Oh, dude! Holy cow!
Look at that thing.
Wow. Holy cow. Male.
Yeah.
Big male. Unbelievable. Look how chunky they are. They sort of remind me of like a big boat sail.
For sure. That 10-inch hole doesn't lie.
Oh my word.
Nice job,
Hey,
dude.
buddy.
Nice.
Holy cow.
Big one.
That's why you go chase big brownies, right?
For sure. Big one.
Now all the way on the other side of Lake Michigan, the Sportfish Michigan guys are dialed. Now there's a lot of great inland bites that go on this time of year, but the harbors are just starting to freeze, and that's a really cool bite right here on Lake Michigan. Just kidding, this isn't Lake Michigan, but you get the point.
We're out here on Grand Traverse Bay, and you know, this bay doesn't freeze all the time, but when it does, we really want to try and take advantage of it. We've got a pile of Cisco down there, and just like during the spring and summer, they fight really hard. These are such beautiful fish. The really great thing about Ciscos too is you can call them in, you know, so if you get one very often, you'll get more. Ooh, look at those nice marks. Come on, baby. The screen's loaded. There we go. On the pause. Just like that. These Ciscos are such a fun fish, these Ciscos, and they can be really aggressive out here on Grand Traverse Bay, and they get big, you know. This is a kind of an average size, and they just put up such a great fight. We are on the quest for Burbot. You know, Burbot really like to hit on the pause, just like Ciscos do. So I just paused a little bit, and this rod just loaded up. There's a really nice Lake Michigan Burbot.
Awesome, we love the pout.
Daytime out on Lake Michigan, yeah, We're out here on Grand Traverse Bay, and let me show you what we were using to catch the Cisco's as well as the Burbot. You know, we were out here targeting both, and one of the things that we really like out here are these S-style jigs. You know, they've got a really nice bend to them. It gives them a little bit more of an action, and these work really well in cold water for the Cisco's, and Burbot like them too, but lake trout love them also. And then for the Burbot specifically, you know, you can use these, they're called trout and pout spoons. You know, this is 1 ounce and 1/8. And this is a super glow color. And then this one is a goby color. You know, it really imitates the gobies that are out here well. It's got a super glow, but then it's got that brownish color to it. And the Burbot really respond well to it. And then we have something that's, that works really well. We have a lot of zebra mussels on the bottom. And these are called sand kickers. And what we like about those is they just sit on the bottom. You can pound the bottom and you don't have to worry about snagging the zebra mussels with treble hooks. All you do is you just bang it onto the bottom and then you just hover it, and those fish just absolutely clobber it. These are really, really good baits for the Great Lakes here, you know. And then also, you know, a jig head works really well. This is made by Rabbit Baits, and it looks a lot like a goby. You know, these fish are feeding really heavily on gobies, whether it's lake trout, Cisco's, when they're down closer to the bottom, as well as the Burbot. And then personally, I like a bait caster for this because, you know, bigger species, I can control the line a little bit better. And then I'm using out here on the Great Lakes, I'm using about a 10 to 15 foot fluorocarbon leader, anywhere from 10 to 12 pound test. And then I'm always using a snap. A snap allows me to not only change baits quickly, but it gives that bait a little bit more action to, you know, freely swing. And this is a medium rod. You could use a medium heavy if you want. You know, anything too much lighter than a medium, really you're kind of undergunned if you get one of those big Burbot in that 10 to 12 pound range that we have up here. You know, we have a lot in that 6 to 8 pound range, but we do see some of those bigger ones, just like that.
Now, one tactic that works like gangbusters, especially if you're camped out and not moving, is chumming. Now, chumming is not legal in all states and provinces, so make sure to check the rule books, but it's a great way to get fish to where you are fishing. Now, I'm gonna pass it off to my buddy Brian Bogdan, and he's gonna show you how to chum.
Lake trout can go in all sorts of water column depths. So if you can pull your fish or in your area to where you are actually fishing, the chances of you hooking up are going to be that much greater. So I'll put my chum on the edge of a ledge or else up on a hump. If we go fishing super shallow, we just find that when we chum, it's not near as effective because there's only going to be the feeding fish that are already up top, and those are the fish that are usually going to strike anyhow. So we try to conserve our chum that we take for each day into areas more adjacent to deeper water so we can suck in more of those fish in there. What I have here is just an 18-19 inch tulipy, and what I first love to do is I like to descale this fish right in the hole. You just run the knife backwards, you take those scales off, and then you just swish it in the hole. And as those scales fall down and flicker, it looks just like a whole bait cloud of bait fish down there. So that's the first thing that I do. Then what I like to do is I like to fillet into small slices. So I'll make a whole bunch of vertical lines down the side of the fish. And then I'll do horizontal lines. And you want to make sure you go deep. If you don't go deep enough, this technique won't work that well. So now that I'm gone deep, horizontally, then when you turn your knife, and as if you're just going to fillet a fish, they all come into little tiny chunks falling off, little cubes. And those lake trout will actually pick those up off the bottom. And it's a great idea wherever you're chumming to have a deadline right beside, run 15 to 20 pound fluoro, just have a small hook on it with a piece of chum, and those lake trout a lot of times will think that's just another free meal and you'll get hooked up with that. So I always try to do it about every 10 to 15 minutes, just keep refreshing. You'll have whitefish, you'll have burbot, you'll have all different types of species coming and cleaning up that chum off the bottom. So you want to make sure it's fresh, it's a more scent. You're basically fishing for freshwater sharks here with those big lake trout. So you always want to make sure you have at least some tulipy with you or some other kind of rife fish to make sure that you get that chum down, and you'll catch just as many fish as we are.
Now, for the longest time, burbot were considered to be a trash fish. But that is a huge mistake because burbot grow really big and they fight super hard. And to me, there's nothing better than taking a big chunk of glow-in-the-dark lead, pounding the bottom, and catching big burbs with your buddies. Now there's a group of us here in central Minnesota that likes to correspond with each other and talk about the burbot bite when it really starts to heat up in February. But a couple guys who really pioneered a lot of the stuff that we do right now in the burbot world are Jason Durham and Jason Rylander. And luckily we have both those guys right now to give you a little 101 on burbot fishing.
Nick asked me to talk about my favorite eel pout baits, and I have a few here to show you. The first one has been my go-to for the last few years, and that's the big nasty trout and pout spoon. It's just a big chunk of lead, has tremendous glow. Adam uses the best glow paint out there, and that's really key when you're chasing those burbs. You're getting both things. You're getting great glow and a lot of weight, so you can pound that bottom and attract them and bring them in. Just recently now, he's rolled out these 1 ounce pout pounders, and what I really like about these is you've got that single hook. It allows you a lot easier unhooking and getting back down and catching the next fish. And these are my typical go-to after dark burbot lures. One thing in Manitoba now is we're getting into the spawn bite and catching some burbot during the day. And we also have the chance of catching lake trout. So I kind of moved to a little bit different bait. I go with some sort of larger profile jig again. And I'll put cut bait on this up here in Manitoba. And then even this big plastic. Now this is a big profile, but we're catching big burbots. I mean, like the smallest one I've caught is 4 or 5 pounds. But then also I've got a beefy hook and a big profile too, where I can also catch a lake trout while I'm doing it. So these are kind of my 3 go-to burb baits.
Got him, that a boy. God, I love setting the hook on these things. It's so fun. The sun just went down and we are out catching pout. Jason and I share a passion for catching these things. They're just an incredible sport fish that I would say, especially like in the last 5 years, have really gained popularity with guys like us and a lot of younger anglers too.
Yeah, I think what's happened is a lot of people have realized that it's a valuable species. It's a lot of fun to catch. They're great to eat, although to tell you honestly, that's one thing we need to do a better job of sharing with the public about the susceptible overharvest of the fish, because it's a very, very high limit on them, and they're relatively slow growing. So to put some of those back, even though like in Minnesota our limit is 100, why would you ever keep that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. Just selective harvest, take a few for the table if you want. They're like, again, a great, delicious fish, great sport fish. But Jason and I have both witnessed people filling otter sleds with fish on spots, and that's why some of the science that's going on right now to figure out how many fish really are in these lakes, and is there site fidelity where these fish come to the same spots, and could we be wiping out a whole population in the spot? So there's a lot to learn still, but there's a lot we've already learned too.
That's absolutely right.
So a couple essential items here. I've got, you can see I've got a glow spoon here, but I've got a bait puck. I just keep a few minnows in there. And then the other thing, because you're pounding the bottom so often, I have these bait buttons. So I'll show you how this works. I'm just gonna take a couple fat heads, stick them on here like so. Now to keep the minnows in, I just take these little deals, slide this over the tip of the hook. And that prevents it when you're pounding the bottom from the minnows falling off, because if you do it without these bait buttons, you just end up going through so much bait. You'll be down there pounding it for a couple minutes, boom, then it comes off. And then I just I like to hit it with just a little UV light, just changes everything. Glow in the dark, just these little, it's just a cheap little UV light here. Boom, deploy, and hopefully I can catch another one, get some redemption. They're loaded down there right now.
So one important thing when fishing eel pout is that, they really don't have very good eyesight. So using a luminescent jig, glow-in-the-dark jig or spoon, and charging it up frequently will really increase the number of bites that you're going to get each night. But what is equally important is the technique that you use. You're really trying to get them in with a combination of motion and sound. So we've got rattles in our spoons that we're using, and those fish are primarily bottom relative. So the primary technique that I start out with is simply just lifting, dropping, lifting, dropping, and letting it free fall and hit the bottom. Sometimes I'll let it sit on the bottom for a few seconds and slowly lift up. And a lot of times you won't even see the fish on your electronics. They'll just be on your bait. So you lift up and you'll feel that weight on there and just set the hook. Other times you can suspend your bait off the bottom and just let it sit. No movement whatsoever. And sometimes those fish will just swim right up to it and eat it, just like this one's gonna do.
Yes! How do you do it, dude?
Yes, I love it. Anytime you get a bend in the rod, it's a good time.
Now there's no doubt that burbot are a ferocious predator and a lot of fun to catch, but they also make for some excellent table fare. Now there's a bunch of different ways to prepare a burbot, but luckily I got Jeremy Smith to cough up his pout pasta recipe, his secret pout pasta recipe. And I'll leave it in the link in the description below. You can check it out. It's a little bit of a longer video, but it goes step by step how to prepare the pasta. And I will say it's delicious. Now we're gonna head over to our local Fleet Farm store and get this episode's cool products. Well, it's midwinter and the weather is cold, which means houses are in play. And if you're the kind of person who still likes to fish when it's freezing cold, but you want to be mobile, I really personally like these one-man shacks like the Kenai Pro from Clam. These one-man shacks are a lot more manageable and easy to move around, but this particular unit is also a thermal, which means it's nice and warm when it's freezing cold outside. Now when it's cold, a nice 1-2 punch to add with jigging in a house is tip-ups. So let's head over to the tip-ups. Now as you can see coming up here, there are a bunch of tip-ups in here, and they come in all shapes and sizes. You got the ones that cover your hole like this. You got some of the more traditional ones as well, and you even have ones with built-in rod holders, which can be kind of nice. But as you can see right here, they got a bunch of them. The Beaver Dam tip-ups are really a tried and true mechanism. These things are bulletproof, they work great, and what a lot of the most hardcore tip-up guys will say is that this particular unit has the best spool on the market. Now, as far as what you're gonna wanna dangle underneath these tip-ups, a lot of guys like to use a plain hook. Some guys like to use jigs. Also, these predator rigs can be particularly sweet, especially if you're chasing pike. But a new product that came out this year that's extra cool, in my opinion, is the new mini predator rig from Northland. And what this particular rig is great for is when you want to use a little bit smaller minnows, or even if you're tip-up fishing for walleye. It'll still work for pike too, but it's a great walleye set. So another nifty little gizmo right here is the JB Fish House float. And what's cool about this thing is you're fishing in a wheelhouse and you got some set lines. You can pop this puppy down in the hole, and it's got this big long spine that runs up, and you can see it down in the hole. A lot of times when you're running normal bobbers, you can't see it while you're kicked back sitting on the couch. So this thing is excellent for fishing in fish houses. Well, since we've been talking about live bait, I will say one thing that's critical when you're tip-up fishing is keeping your bait lively. So that's where these coolers come in, these Engel live bait coolers. These things are spill-proof, which is very helpful. And of course, it's got the aerator system on the inside, which keeps your fish alive. So I'm gonna throw that in there. Another important bait management tool are these nifty little Strike Master bait pucks. And what I like to do is I like to have worms in one of them, whether it's larvae, waxworms, etc. And I like to put minnows in the other one. These are super handy, fit in your pocket, and you don't have to run back to the bait well every time you need to bait up. Now, one family of lures that you cannot step out onto the ice without would be the Jigging wraps. Now, you got some of the smaller sizes like the 2s and 3s that work great for crappies, bluegills even. And then you can upsize. A lot of guys like to use the 5s, but the 7s work great as well for walleyes. My buddy Brad Hawthorne will even upsize to a number 9 when the fish are really, really snapping. So make sure to grab a few jigging wraps. Now, another bait that has a similar darting action but is a little bit different is the forage minnow dart from Northland. And what's cool about this bait is it's a little bit of a smaller profile, but it still jumps out left and right. You can tip it with minnows, you can put plastics on it. Works great for panfish and walleyes. So one of the biggest mistakes I see people make out on the ice, especially when they're fishing jigging wraps, but also spoons, is they don't fish them with swivels. And you need a swivel because when that bait's jumping around like that, spinning in circles, you're gonna get so much line twist. And the same is true with spoons in a lot of cases. So you need a swivel. And another thing is snaps. Now, some spoons just fish a little bit better with snaps, so it pays to have them on you. A lot of the VMC terminal tackle is really high quality, but also a pretty good price. So I would pick it up before you head out on the ice so you're not that guy bumming snaps and swivels from your buddy. So moving over to the electronics side of things, as you guys know, we really like to use Humminbird Helix units. They have excellent sonar and mapping. But one thing that we hear a lot from people is that, oh, well, I don't want to spend all that money and I already have maps on my phone. So an option for those of you who don't need mapping on your Humminbird is the ICE Helix 5 Chirp. Now you notice that it doesn't say GPS down at the bottom. Well, you're gonna save a little bit of money because of that, but you still have the excellent Chirp sonar, as well as some really impressive interference rejection technology, adjustable zoom, and my favorite, recorded history. So I'm gonna throw this puppy in the box here. And next up, we're gonna talk about underwater cameras. Now this particular unit is the AquaView HD10i, and this thing is basically the granddaddy of underwater cameras. Extremely clear picture, big screen. You can see the fish swimming around underneath the ice. You can see how they react to your baits. These high-end cameras are especially nice to have if you have a wheelhouse. You can set it up there, hook it up to your TV, and watch it.
That's a nice one right there. That's a really nice fish.
Yeah. There, I got him. I got him.
Speaking of wheelhouses, we're gonna show you a few more products out in our house, but don't forget to head over to your local Fleet Farm store and get all the products we just talked about. All right, we're back in the house. Real quick, we have the Power to Go box from Bold North Outdoors. This comes in 3 different models, and this is just a super nice thing to have on hand, whether you want to power lights inside your fish house, charge your cell phone, or even hook a GoPro up on here. As you can see, it's got these ram balls right here where we like to put GoPros on occasion. Additionally, as you can see, it's got a flashlight if you're ever in a pinch and a UV light to glow your jigs. Now switching over to the rod reel side of things, right here I have the St. Croix Mojo ice rod. This is a great all-around series of rods. It comes in models from 24 inches up to 36 inches, and going from lighter, softer action panfish rods like this all the way up to something for bigger predator fish. Another thing I like about this rod, comes with a reel seat, as you can see, which means you don't have to mess around with tape, which is always a nice bonus. Now speaking of reels, right here I have the Daiwa QR 750. You know, a lot of pan fishermen like to use 500 size reels. For me, that's just a little bit small. I like to bump it up to the 750. For me, it's better for line management, and this particular reel has an excellent, excellent drag. In addition, on the rod storage side of things, it has an easy push button fold, which is awesome for storage. Now, speaking of storage, right above me here, I have the catch cover rod rack. Now, these things are super handy to have around. A lot of guys mount their rod racks right on the wall here, but as you can see, a great place to do it is up on the ceiling. In addition, it's nice to have them in your garage as well, wherever you have your tackle gear. Just a really, really nice rod rack for ice fishing rods. Now it's midwinter right now, but late ice is just around the corner. Now I'm gonna throw it off to Brian Brosdahl, and he's gonna help us transition between the two seasons.
You know, late ice can be some of the best ice fishing of the year. And you wanna know why? Because it's that time of year when the water starts rushing in, running down the holes, the river starts swelling from the thaw, from the snow thawing, and it brings oxygen. It's a big cup of coffee for the lake. Not only that, the angle of the sun doesn't just affect deer and waterfall migrations, it affects fish. And this is that time of year where the snow starts depleting, more light penetration goes into the lake, and fish like jumbo perch, they can see better. They don't have really good night vision, and obviously with the trees and the bushes and whatever's on land, it traps that heat, the sun beats down, and the shorelines are the first to go. And a lot of times, we have a lot of great ice out farther in the lake. But as the ice gets less and less, everything gets active. There's a migration to the shoreline, the minnows go up there, it's an oxygen, it's a food thing, everything's in full season right there. Insect life. Insects move into the shallows or up underneath the ice, bringing the fish with them. So food, oxygen, cover, everything's important. Target small tree branches, anything that they could hide underneath. Vegetation, any standing vegetation, even if it's dead, areas that don't have vegetation, that have rocks, rock features, you know, the Canadian shield rocks will hold all kinds of fish, including panfish and crappies and bluegills will hold to structure any cover at all. You know, in late ice, your presentation could change quite a bit. You're going from, you know, the deeper water, heavier lures to a little bit lighter lures, lighter spoons, and sometimes finesse. The fish can be aggressive, but even when they move up shallower, we have different weather patterns and barometric changes that get the fish in a mood, but they're not going to leave the shallows completely. So small spoons like this eyeball spoon here work really well with some maggots or just a waxy on there, wrap a waxy. Little punch jigs, punch flies, all that stuff works really well. And you know, start aggressive jigging with spoons, have a punch fly ready to drop down, as I have right here. Just a small bait, one waxy threaded on there. You know, start with a little bit of a spoon. And these are great baits for crappies, perch, even big bluegills. You might want to go smaller if you want to catch small bluegills. Just kidding, but I guarantee you, late ice is going to be a great time, and they're a lot more aggressive. There'll be less jigging and more catching. Bring your safety stuff, life jacket, spikes, ways to get out, just like you would early ice, but get out and enjoy it before the shorelines go.
One of the hottest big fish bites on hard water is chasing late ice northern pike. Now let's join Ty Shadeen as they pound some jumbo jacks.
Okay, we're on Lake of the Woods. We're up here in the middle of March, which is prime time for massive, big gators. I'm with my friend Mark Artisan. We're out of Artisans, Rocky Point. It's late season. The pike are moving in. Usually they're in, you know, shoreline, massive flats. We're not doing that today, are we, Mark?
Well, typically on Lake of the Woods, when it comes to northern fishing, everybody thinks about fishing like the shallows around the shorelines, in front of the creeks and ditches. But another good option is coming out to some of these rock reefs. Right now, today, we're out fishing on the top of 16. As you can see here, top's out at about 10 feet, and then you got pretty solid breaks all around us. What we've done today is just kind of put a few up on top and then down the base of the reef or whatever. You got to remember, there's fish, not all the fish are in the shallows, especially the northerns, like all winter long. They kind of migrate to where the bait fish are, and the bait fish migrate to the structures. So if you find the structure, you can find the fish. Now we just got to get them up through 5 feet of ice.
5 feet of ice. Oh, I see that. I see the sinker. Oh, my God! Big walleye! Look at that! Bonus. When you're talking about fishing, one of the best walleye lakes anywhere, even when you are fishing giant pike, you've got a chance to have one of these big old golden beauties. Look at the size of her!
Not what we're looking for, but we'll take it anyway.
You know what? When big walleyes are a bonus fish, I'll take that all day, bud. You're coming up, targeting these big pike. There's a few different things you obviously need to have when you're going after pike. Tip-ups is a great option. We're all familiar with the traditional tip up. We've all used them growing up. But another one that I really like is the Arctic Warrior. Why? Because you can actually reel these huge pike in with a rod and reel as opposed to cutting your hands with the Dacron. Now when it comes to the end of your line, you know, a heavy fluorocarbon type leader or a titanium, a couple options when it comes to hooks. Circle hook. I really like circle hooks. Why? Because you don't have to set the hook. When you start reeling,
there he is.
The hook typically gets hooked right in the side or the top of the mouth. Another option is quick set rigs. Just like it says in the back, you hook one right in the front, one in the back. So you're definitely going to hook up no matter what. You're not going to miss too many of them. When it comes to baits, you're talking dead baits, whether it be Cisco, smelt, something that a lot of people don't realize, but hot dogs also work for pike. And really, cheaper, the better. Obviously live bait, you're going after big pike, so you're using big sucker minnows.
What?
Here we go. Oh, took the rod out of my hand. We are hooked up.
We got the eagle over there looking at our bait, and we got a fish on this one.
That's a good sign.
That's a good sign when
That's
it goes the
what I
other
like
way.
to hear. A little drag. Oh, here comes, here comes.
Oh!
Wait till you see this thing. Buddy, look at the size of that tank.
Oh.
Whoa!
That's a fish.
There you go. Oh my gosh! Look at this girl! Look at the size of her! Whoa! Woo! Oh my gosh, Mark!
Get the rod on there.
This is why you come to Lake of the Woods for big horses like this.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Oh, look at the size of that gut on her. Lake of the Woods, giant pike. It doesn't get any better than this. It does not. This thing is a tank. Here we go.
Well, that about wraps things up for this episode of Angling Buzz Ice. If you enjoyed what you just watched, make sure to hit that like button and also hit that little red button down there, the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to sign up for our huge ice fishing giveaway. The link is down below in the description. You have a chance to win a bunch of ice fishing gear. And make sure to stay tuned to all things Angling Buzz because we have more ice fishing content to come. Until next time, I'm Nick Linder. I'll see you on the ice. So you saw that demonstration, and I will say it didn't quite do justice for just how fast this guy can cut walleyes. So to demonstrate that, I'm gonna face off against him. So he has 4 walleyes, I have 4 walleyes. We will start in 3, 2, 1.
You might want to pass a couple of those down.
Put him in the middle. All right, so he just busted into my first walleye.
You done yet?
Whatever.
Okay, let's just go head to head here again.
Okay, ready?
Ready? Here, let me find another fish. Here, let's see if I can do it without looking at it. I'll just look at you. You know, this is almost doing it blindfolded. Not bad.
All right,
Not
so
looking at them.
So as you can see, it was very, very close. I completed a walleye. You stole some of their walleyes.
Yeah. I got 6 and one I wasn't looking at.
Yeah. Well, that was I don't really actually know what else to say other than the fact that close competition.
Close. We were there. Thanks.